Husking and supervisor here at Jim Hinkla. We are officially on our 28th annual harvest and husking bee. Unfortunately, it is canceled this year, but we still are doing all the white corn activities and our responsibilities. So the video that we're doing today is husking. So we went out and picked the corn, we brought it inside, and we're going to husk it, prepare it to be braided or put into one of our other drying systems. So what we do is we grab a cob, we husk off. It's easiest to do one at a time. What makes our corn unique is how many husks are on this cob. So conventional corn, you'll have 3, maybe 4 husks on there sometimes. I already pulled off about 3 of them. You'll see here, there's another one. Here's 2, there's already 3, like the amount you'll see on conventional corn. And you can see how protected this corn still is. There's still a large amount of husks still on there. You'll also see these little black dots. We'll have aphids in our corn. They're not harmful to it at all. So we just continue to move on. You'll see some other challenges within the corn due to mold or some other type of things, some other bugs. Corn borers, European corn borers is another insect that we have here on site. All those things can be eradicated or taken care of, and the corn is still good. So what we want to do is open it up. If we're going to be creating a braid, we want to open this cob up. We want to keep either our 2 or 3 strongest husks. So we got 1. Usually these husks are going to be the closest to the cob. So we got 1, we got 2, and we got the 3rd husk. So this is going to be a good cob to braid. Now some of the things that we have to look at in our defense, so we don't lose any crop due to mold or pest infestation, is we want to look for these different things like mold right here. You'll see black mold and white mold. It's not real harmful to us because we do have a hull on this corn that'll get washed out. So you see the black mold here. We do have a little bit of white mold right here, and I do have a couple pulled off. There's a good example right there of this whole tip. Right here is white mold. So basically what happened is these were closed, it gathered moisture couldn't get out, and it molded inside. So it does happen. This one right here, what we would do is just snap off, throw that part out, but we're gonna keep the rest of this cob. So there's a lot of valuable corn still on the cob that we wanna make sure that we're keeping. And then for seed, like I said, we want those 3 strongest husks like I pulled back to already. You can kind of see this little knob on the back. We'll eventually lop that off. That'll help us create a braid. Some of the things that we're looking for when we're talking about seed are the 8 rows. When we're husking, we're looking for 8 rows all the way around the corn. No dent on top of the kernel. That means that it's a specific flour type of corn, and usually conventional corn has that dent. No other color. Large amounts of colors that we'll see are red strains going through, pinkish strains going through, and then also we'll get blue corn. We got community members growing blue corn, and then also our community is infested with conventional corn. So we'll also get conventional corn brought into the cob here. So we also look at stock standability and the placement of the cob out in the field. So those are some other things that we'll talk about when we make a video out there when we're picking. So this is a great example of a seed corn. Put that off to the side. Now we also have cobs that aren't going to be used for seed. So for instance, like this guy here, a great piece of corn yet. We're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna pull these husks off one by one. And I know already that I'm not gonna braid this one. So what we do is we remove all the husk off. Remove all the husks. So now obviously this can't be braided. We don't have any husk here to braid. So we've been growing corn here for many years. We've been through many different types of drying systems. Nothing beats braiding, but we have created some gravity boxes where we throw these cobs into the gravity box. It takes about 2 months for this guy here to get dry. It takes about a month and a half for this to dry. So nothing beats our braiding system. that we found yet. And as you can see, we keep everything. So there's bugs in here, there's mold, and these little hairs here, the silk, you can just rip that off. We want to keep everything. That's at least a bowl of soup right there. So just to let you know, in contrast, is what we're keeping here. That little cob right there is probably a bowl of soup. So we also have what we call hataluchi, corn smut, some people call it. It's a delicacy in Central America. You can see it right here on this cob. You rip the cob out, but you're left with like this powdery black fungi. So like I said, that's a delicacy in Central America. They would eat that within like the first 3 weeks of growing. Right now it would be too old. That doesn't harm the corn at all. It's basically sitting on top of the corn and on top of the hull. So anything we can wash off or rub off, or bugs we can easily take off and put somewhere, we're still gonna keep the corn. We rarely throw anything away. Stuff that we will throw away are like cracked kernels. And then sometimes you'll also notice that that sometimes the kernels will not be growing on the cob itself. We can throw that away as well. Here's a really good example right here. So we had kernels that did not grow. So this we would throw away, but you gotta be careful now, because look, well, we just snapped that off to throw away, but underneath, we still have all these kernels here. That's like 2 bowls of soup. So we really wanna be careful in keeping everything. We really worked hard planting the field, cultivating the field, praying in the field, and bringing groups out there. We had a great time out there all summer. So we just really want to make sure that we, get the complete harvest. We don't want to leave anything out there. So then with husking in the end, what we'll do, as you can see, we have a bin here. So these guys will go into a separate bin to get braided. They go off to the side. And this bin here has all the cobs that we ripped all the husk off. So this will go into the gravity box drying system. And then here we kept cobs with husk on. So you can see this is what we're gonna be braiding. The goal is to fill the entire corn shed. We have about 200 hooks to fill. So that is the best way to dry the corn after we husk it. So I do also want to show you a couple other things. When we remove the husk completely off, we're left with this cob. You can also see that we're getting some cross-pollination from conventional corn there. So the cool thing is that this kernel right here is holding our properties. So it still has the, what was I gonna say? The nutrients, it still has all the nutrients, and it has all the protein that these white kernels have. It's important now, if you're to save seed, that you do not replant that, because the next year this seed will go back to its parent. So it'll be yellow again and you'll lose all those beneficial properties to indigenous corn. Okay, that'll bring our husking demonstration to an end. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to post them on the group. Down we go.
Hey everybody, I'm Becky Webster and I'm going to be talking about braiding. And I'm going to show you a little bit about getting the cobs ready for braiding. I know you saw about pulling the husks off. One of the things that I like to do for braiding is I like to cut this knobby end off with clippers, and I'll just grab it right about there and clip it off. You don't want to cut it too short because then the husks will fall off. But if you leave it too long, then it might make it a little more difficult to braid. And then when you pull the husks back, then there's no knobby thing in your way. So when you're getting ready to braid, you can have a nice tight braid. All right, so to start the braid, I take 2 of the cobs like this and I twist them around each other. And this makes sure that when the braid is hanging up, that it doesn't unravel and unbraid. So after that, it's just like braiding hair. You add in 1 cob and then you twist over the other side. So you should always have 3 sets of husks here. And you keep adding them in and twisting that side over into the middle, just like you would for a regular braid. And you keep adding them in, and you keep doing that until all of your corn is gone. what it'll look like as you're braiding it. So again, you start with those two cobs and you set them over each other and then you twist them like that. And again, this is really important so your braid doesn't come unraveled. And then you add another cob, you twist it in, always making sure that you have your 3 sets of husks down there. You want to try to get this pretty tight. Otherwise, if it's loose, your cobs might just slip right out and your braid could fall. And every now and then you might have, see it, even though it just has the 3 husks, if it's really too thick, you can go ahead and take one off just to make sure that it still sits in the braid nice. Otherwise it might get too bulky and then it might not stay tight enough and then your braid could fall. And then when you have all of your corn in, it's time to start making the handle. And to do that, I take about 10 husks or so, nice long ones if you can. And then I just tear them in half. So you end up with 20 pieces. And of course, there's all kinds of different ways to do this. I'm just sharing the way that I learned how. All right, so then you can start adding them in, and I just add them in right there, and I keep going. Add another one. And then as we do this, this braid is gonna get thinner, and it'll still be nice and strong. And this is what's gonna help you be able to hang up your braid of corn. We like to hang our corn in our living room so we can admire it until it's time to eat it. All right, and as I'm putting the last one in, I bring that side over there. So now I combine it with that other side. So now you have 2 sets of husks here. And then what you do is you roll them up under. I like to go under at least 2 cobs. And then you come up under them like this. And I try to get 2 or 3 knots in here. And you can pull it tight. Don't be afraid to crank on it. And if it breaks, that's okay. You can just unravel it a little bit and add new husks. It happens. go, and then you have a nice sturdy handle here to hang up your corn. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. And if you have questions, don't be afraid to ask. We have a lot of people in our community that are experts at this. Contact Jamie, she'll let you know how this all goes. Contact me. And don't be afraid to ask questions. It's okay, because a lot of us didn't grow up knowing this stuff. So as adults, we're having to learn it, and it's okay to learn it. And I'm excited to learn along with you.
Yana